A huge brown bear approached gamekeeper Ivan Belov, who was tied tightly to a century-old pine tree in the middle of the taiga. Ivan had been left here by poachers, who had tied him up and abandoned him to his fate. His body ached, and his hope was almost extinguished. The rough rope dug deep into his hands and chest, preventing him from moving. The mighty beast stopped just a few steps away, its small, intelligent eyes fixed on the man. A tense silence hung in the air. Ivan, trying to calm his wildly beating heart, peered at the bear's outline, looking for any familiar signs. And he saw it, a jagged scar near its right ear, a mark from an old trap from which Ivan had freed it many months ago in his little hut. Back then, it was a female bear who had brought her cub to Ivan for help, an incredible story of trust. But this was undoubtedly her mate, the magnificent male who had watched the rescue from afar. Now this fearsome predator was his only hope. The bear shifted from paw to paw, his gaze moving from Ivan's face to the tight knots of the rope. He lowered his massive head, and a low growl escaped from his chest. Ivan knew that this sound was not a sign of aggression, but rather something like recognition. The bear cautiously nudged the rope with his nose, as if assessing the complexity of the knots. "It's me, buddy. It's Ivan, you remember?" the gamekeeper croaked with a parched throat. The beast moved its ear, showing that it was listening. Then it set to work. The bear began to tear at the thick strands of rope with its powerful fangs, trying not to touch Ivan's skin. The work was painfully slow. The knots were tight and damp from the morning dew. If the bear accidentally touched him, his rescue would turn into a disaster. But the beast worked with incredible concentration, as if his past experience with humans had given rise to a deep, unshakable trust. Suddenly, a long howl pierced the silence of the taiga. In the distance between the trees, a pack of wolves appeared. Their predatory silhouettes moved with clear intent, attracted by the scent of the motionless man and the busy bear. The bear immediately stopped his attempts and raised his head, shifting his attention to the approaching threat. He faced a desperate choice: continue to rescue Ivan or protect them both from the pack. The bear stood evenly between Ivan and the advancing wolves. He let out a deafening, furious roar. A fierce battle ensued. Driven by an unknown sense of duty, the bear rushed into the attack. With one blow of his massive paw, he threw one of the wolves aside. He used all his weight and strength to keep the others at bay, and his roar did not stop for a second. Ivan watched the battle with bated breath, realizing that his savior's every move was aimed at protecting his life. The bear managed to drive the pack deep into the forest, but he himself received several nasty scratches on his side. Exhausted and breathing heavily, the beast returned to Ivan. He gently nudged the gamekeeper's cheek with his nose, then looked at the ropes again, letting out a quiet, meaningful growl. It was as if he was begging the man to find a solution, asking a silent question. Summoning his last ounce of strength, Ivan concentrated. The bear had gnawed through the outer layers of the rope, but the core was too thick. Then Ivan desperately began rubbing the rope on his wrist against the rough bark of a pine tree, trying to thin the fibers. The bark scraped his skin, but he ignored the pain. When he looked up, the bear was watching him intently. Ivan nodded toward the rubbed spot, and then toward the beast's mouth. The bear seemed to understand his plan. He lowered his head again, and with one sharp, powerful movement, sank his teeth into the weakened part of the rope. There was a crack, and the rope snapped. Ivan collapsed to the ground, free but exhausted. But the danger was not yet over. Another inhabitant of the taiga emerged from the trees. Another large male bear, attracted by the noise of the fight. He saw no escape. He saw only a vulnerable man on the ground. Easy prey. Ivan's savior immediately turned to face the uninvited guest. He let out a menacing roar, not an attack, but an assertion of his rights, making it clear that this man was under his protection. Seeing such determination, the new bear hesitated, then turned and disappeared into the thicket. When the danger had finally passed, the bear returned to Ivan. The gamekeeper sat leaning against a tree, his body aching, but his soul rejoicing. The beast's gaze was calm and peaceful. Ivan slowly stretched out his wounded hand, and the bear, with remarkable understanding, lowered its head one last time, allowing the man to touch the scar near its ear. It was a moment of deep, silent connection, an acknowledgement of a debt paid. The bear snorted quietly, turned with dignity, and walked deep into the taiga, leaving Ivan safe and silent. This encounter was no accident. It was a powerful lesson that kindness shown without expectation of reward is never forgotten. The bear remembered the man who had saved his family, and in return, risked everything to save him. Later, Ivan reported the poachers, and they were brought to justice. But the real reward for him was the confirmation of his life's work, the realization that trust and compassion exist even in the wild, blurring the boundaries between species.